Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
Cody, brother, good to see you, man. You look
Kyle.
great. Like, honestly, like
Dude.
you look healthy and vibrant, and I haven't seen you forever, but like you look really, really, really good, man.
Oh, thank you, man. You
Hell
too,
yeah.
dude. You too, honestly. Man, you are aging well, I will say.
I don't know about that. I think most of this beard's covering up whatever else is under there, but then it just pokes out these grays.
Dude,
It just
you're
shows
looking-
my children.
You're
on my
looking
chin.
distinguished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. So what's God, it's been ages since we've seen each other.
Yeah, man. I was like listening to some of the past episodes, and you had talked to some homies of ours that we all kind of grew up with. And I was like thinking to myself, when was the last time that we even saw each other? And I like legit cannot remember. It's been a long time.
I saw you at the so it was the Summit Bar, but they've got that upstairs.
Yeah, the old
Deal.
backstage or whatever. Yeah, the
So
Summit.
you were, I think you had just moved back from Austin at that point. Like
Yeah.
you were fresh back in town.
Yeah.
And like I hadn't seen you. It was like, oh, like hugs all around. Like, all right, I gotta go. I gotta play. Like, all right, cool. And
Okay.
then,
Yeah,
you know,
dude.
so since then it's been like, trying to keep up on whatever social media I'm following you on. And
Yeah, man.
but it seems like you guys are doing really well. And I see your dad from time to time, you
Yeah.
know, because he shoots some photos for me, and
Yeah.
and he's always, trying to bring me up to speed. I'm like, oh, dude, I was like, I got to get Cody on the show. Like, I want to hear what the hell's going on.
Dude, I'm super pumped that you reached out, honestly, and I'm flattered too. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
for,
I love
like,
this.
first of all.
Such a music nerd, dude. So it's like, I don't know if people even like to listen to the music episodes, but I love them so much that I'm like, whatever, we're
Dude.
doing it.
Well, and you know what, man? Like, I gotta say, I kind of did want to like bring this up at some point, but like you being in history of back in the day when we were growing up and what you guys did when we were all kids, like totally was always in the back of my mind when I started down this like new kind of music career. And it was always like, I saw you guys like touring and stuff when we were all like teenagers. And I think, Courtney was like 13 or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
And like, but no, I was always so stoked and like, man, that'd be so cool to get to do that. So like, cheers to you, man. You've always been like, our musical lives have been in orbit, like when we were kids, and
Yeah.
it's been cool to like get to do that now. For me, is pretty wild. So
Yeah, I mean, it's super wild. I mean, it's kind of like every one of the little posts I see or reels you watch it always like sparks that. And I think Nick and I talked about this, like, even if you haven't been loving music or playing music for a while, like you hear somebody, especially like if they were once close with you, like in your life, you hear them doing it still, and you're like, ooh, it kind of like gets the butterflies like a little bit like, oh man, like I miss this. And you're like, we should start a fucking band, dude.
Yeah, dude.
Like let's do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, man.
But no, it's super inspirational seeing you, still doing music for as long as you've been doing it and having so much success. And I want to get into that. So let's without further ado, man, let's just take me back a little bit and bring me up to speed, because I'm sure there's so much that you only catch so much in whatever you're scrolling through on Instagram.
Oh,
So-
totally, man. Yeah. Long story short, I since we've seen each other, I spent some time, in Austin with our mutual friend, Nick Joswick, who runs a recording studio down there. And we had a great time down there. And then kind of fast forward, I was in Atlanta for a little bit. And then, shit kind of hit the fan for me in my personal life. So I moved back to Colorado. I hadn't been back to Colorado in I think like 5 or 6 years at that point. So I just like felt like I needed to get back home and figure stuff out. And, moving back home wasn't something I super like wanted to do, but I felt like I needed to kind of get shit straight. And it ended up being like a super transformative time. And through that, I wanted to get back into music just in my personal life. When I moved back to Colorado anyway, it had kind of gone by the wayside and I was doing other things. I was mostly working in the restaurant industry, as a chef and like fine dining restaurants and stuff. But when I got back, I just kind of wanted to slow down and like do more shit outside and get back to music just for fun. But then the more I started playing around town, I was meeting, all the local pickers in the kind of bluegrass scene, and met a dude that had just moved to town as well, and ended up being Fred Kozak, who's my bandmate now. And through him, I met Alyssa Wolff, who's the third member of our band. And since then, man, it's been pretty crazy, like in a relatively short amount of time, especially in like the grand scheme of being a like touring musician. We've just gotten a lot accomplished and have caught some breaks and worked really hard, and we get to do it full time now, and it's been pretty wild. But that's the short version, yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. What's the name of the band?
Stillhouse Junkies.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
and we play kind of a progressive bluegrass folk kind of. This is kind of what we're doing. All original music, and we tour a lot.
Nice. So you guys just you just gave me a CD a second ago. Is that your latest release?
That's the still pretty brand new record. We tracked it back in February of 2022, and it came out in September 2022. So we signed a record deal at the end of 2021, and it happened really quick to where we were like in the studio, and it was like bam, we're like, well, holy shit, that was fast.
Yeah.
But here we are. Okay, cool. And then it was kind of a slow burn, We released 3 singles through the summer where we were on the road like a ton. And then, the record came out in September, and we were fortunate enough to have the official release show be at a place called the Station Inn in Nashville,
Oh, nice.
Tennessee. And it's kind of like, the most famous bluegrass club in the world. It's pretty dope. It's a really tiny old dive bar in a really nice part of Nashville now, but it has not always been the case. But now it's in this really cool, neighborhood with all this new shit, and it's like this tiny little cinder block building that's been there for a long time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Man.
Yeah, man.
How's it been received so far?
It's been, I mean, we've gotten some cool reviews. We've gotten some great write-ups. We're getting a lot of, a lot for us, a lot of radio play, actual radio play all over the country and a little bit in Europe. And we get some spins on XM. I think just before you and I hit the red record button, we were talking about digital streaming and stuff. Sure. And that's totally a part of our kind of band business that we're still trying to nail down. But that's all good, That's what we tour for, and all that will come,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
The idea.
It's something different. I was talking to Cornue Wilmer, who's still a bandmate of mine, the other day, and we had them on the podcast with his personal band, and they were talking about their kind of release strategy. And it's so interesting because I go back to, a decade ago, we recorded our last record, and, we print out 5,000 records, and they're in the back of the van, and we're slinging them as hard as we can. And at that time, there was still iTunes, and you could maybe get it on 1 or 2 platforms. There was no like curator, so to speak. There wasn't like a DistroKid where it just goes out to the masses.
Yep.
So I couldn't imagine like being an active band in the sense of where you're trying to tour, you're trying to get your music out there, you're trying to sell merch, and having to constantly battle the digital world. Like that seems like a really, really daunting task because it's so saturated. I mean, maybe it's not saturated with good music, but I think I brought this up in a past episode. It's like anymore, it seems like people are no longer concerned with quality. Like nobody cares. You could step on an MP3 8,000 times and it just sound like garbage.
Totally.
Which is one of the things, I do like. I was in Texas for a small bit of time for some work, and some buddies down there introduced me to kind of, that sort of, Texas red dirt kind of music. Sort of was the first time that I really started to appreciate a fiddle.
Yeah, man.
And a banjo. I mean, it was different for me. I always kind of had this like weird, like, I don't know if I really like it. I don't like the place of it. But hearing it in that style, the way that a lot of those records are mixed, like Flatland Cavalry is one of my favorite bands. And they've got that like grunge vibe, but like everything is so isolated. You can hear the fiddle, you can hear the banjo, you can hear this. And so I shouldn't say that people don't care about quality, because definitely certain people still do.
Totally.
But for going and being a traveling band to try and break out through that digital realm where you, at a click of a button, any music is there. It just seems really, really daunting to me.
Dude. Yeah, it's insane, especially when you're totally independent. You know what I mean? And like we are not an independent band anymore. We're lucky and we have, gotten fortunate, and we have a team and a label now. But like when we were making music independently, 100%, it's even more stressful. It's still very stressful, don't get me wrong, but like trying to figure all that out. What's the right thing to do? How do we release singles? How do we release music at all? Do people even care if it's on a record anymore? Like, does it even matter? I mean, maybe, I don't know. We still don't super know, but like that's part of it, man. And like, you know, you mentioned like slinging hard copies and stuff. I mean, we still totally do sell like a lot of merch at shows. And I think a lot of that is because, you know, fans that, you know, someone like you that like has this really deep relationship with music, you're the kind of person that comes to shows, you know, and you know what's up and you're going to buy merch. And luckily, you know, in the folk and bluegrass world, I think that those fans are a lot of them are like that, you know. So we do sell, you know, a solid amount of merch, but yeah, the streaming thing is still like kind of a mystery to us. But you know, we're working on it.
Yeah, we've got a couple like singles through DistroKid, and I looked at it the other day, just out of curiosity. I was like, okay, let's say that's been played 10,000, 20,000 times, dude. It's like 5 cents.
Yeah.
And I'm
well,
like,
yeah.
Nobody's making fucking money on spinning records.
I mean,
like, unless you're one of the, like the major.
And even then, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. You know, it's really tough. I mean, a friend of ours, Rachel Bayman, just put out a record, or not a record, but an article that she wrote that I think Rolling Stone published, and it was about her year end. You know, she's a decently big artist as far as monthly listeners go. I think she hovers around 30, 40,000, which is like pretty solid, right? Yeah. Way more than my band has. But but she wrote an article really like bearing out all of this is how it works. Like this is exactly how much money I made last year, you know, on Spotify specifically, I think. So yeah, it's interesting to see. I think something is going to have to like give at some point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And luckily, like where we are in our career as a band, it's not like the most important thing on our minds, like what our streaming numbers are per se, you know, because I think right now we're just focused on like touring a lot, which we hope will just like help that out organically too. But the reality of it is for sure that like bands are not making money on music that we make in the studio, like at all, you know, especially bands that are like, in the band that we are, which is like you know, we're journeyman musicians, basically. We're just out there. You don't know who we are, but we're working. And there are thousands of us in this country and, you know, all these bands that none of us have heard of, but there are musicians out there. So, yeah.
It's kind of like the creation of the music has become the lost leader to get the fans, and then the fans buy the merch. Right. Which subsequently puts you on tour, which costs money, you know, so. Yeah,
and it's interesting too, because you think about like certain, you know, Instagram channels or whatever that like focus on a certain genre that have almost in a way become, you know, like radio stations used to be as far as like trend setting what is hot on the charts or whatever, what's going to blow up. You know, like in our world, you know, more in the country scene, but like Western as fuck, you know, that Instagram profile is basically a showcase of a lot of really cool kind of underground, Western based, mostly country singers and stuff. And a lot of them have really blown up because of just that Instagram. You know what I mean? So there's like things like that you kind of have to contend with too, and strategically try to work with to break those numbers too. But yeah, it's definitely different.
Yeah, I can't really fathom it, to be honest with you, because I was just so ingrained in that like physical. I was such a physical copy nerd. Like,
well, and that's the thing too, because like I was saying, you know, you're a person that truly loves music, and there are thankfully a lot of people like you and like us that will buy cool merch and you know, CDs or vinyl or whatever. So
yeah, the vinyl's making a huge resurgence, man. It's crazy. Like I went in, so we've got these records behind us, but I went in the other day to just kind of grab like a slew, because I mean, you got like I own like 10 good vinyls, right? I don't listen to those; they're like owned to never be played. Yeah, you know. And so I needed 100.
Yeah,
and so
those are your investment records.
I go in and they're like $7 a pop. I'm like, what? No, that's a lot of money. Yeah. And they're like, vinyl's back, baby. I was like, okay, I guess. Like, yeah. But they had this sweet fucking Janis Joplin dude. And like, it was like a B-side print or something.
Oh, that's cool.
I was like, I really want that.
Yeah.
But it was like $17. And I was like thrift store shopping for decorations in here. And
I mean, dude,
yeah,
it's
I
like,
just couldn't do it. I felt bad, but I was like, I mean, hey, Janice is dead. She doesn't need the money. So
No, she does
she's not gonna be hurting if I don't buy this used record from a thrift store.
No.
So. But yeah, it's crazy the vinyl's coming back.
and the thing with vinyl now too is that, do you want to go the vintage route, or are you down with buying like all the stuff from your new artists, or like what exactly? I kind of like tend to gravitate towards just buying old country albums for some reason, and some bluegrass too. But like I really like just buying old country records for whatever reason. But yeah, vinyl. Yeah, I mean, vinyl's awesome, and we're doing our new record, Small Towns, like that I mentioned, came out in September, is going to be on vinyl, but the vinyl market's super backed up right now, so everybody's just like waiting on it, and I have no idea when it'll be available.
Yeah, is Jack White still doing his vinyl thing out of Nashville? Like,
yeah, Third Man Records, I believe. Oh, big time, dude. Yeah. Have not rubbed elbows with Jack yet, but I'm hoping to. So if you're listening, Jack,
we're calling you for you.
Yeah, I'll see you in Nashville. Bud.
Yeah. Let's just step back for a little bit, because I'm really curious, because my brain, granted we knew each other when we were kids, and we all listened to a completely different style of music. So I'm often curious to because I've changed my musical taste.
Yeah,
and I've talked about it quite a few times. I don't really listen to the music that we play anymore as a band, ever actually. But I enjoy it when I'm playing with the guys.
Yeah.
But I never turn it on unless it's like an old school banger or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, this is just gonna, get my feathers flowing. We're good. But
there's always a time for it.
I want to take it back for a little bit, because you were in Austin, and you went to Atlanta, and then you came back maybe a little bit defeated to Durango, because I've done that. I've done that same crawl back.
Yeah, dude.
And in the moment, you do feel 100% defeated. They're like, I'm a fucking failure. I'm going home. But like, what people tend to forget is this place is awesome.
Yes.
Like, it truly is world class when it comes to a lot of things. Great people, great music, great food. We still aren't overly saturated by the ski resort, because we're not built around a ski resort, so we can still almost survive here. It's questionable some days, but
yeah.
So I want to know a little bit more, if you don't mind, man. Is like, what led you to coming back here? I mean, was it like you needed to personally get away, like as far as growth, or your life was going in a direction that you were like no longer satisfied with?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that probably is it for sure. I mean, I moved to Atlanta with a girl, and that relationship just pretty much disintegrated as soon as we moved there. So I was kind of stuck there for the summer, just working and, saving up money to get back home. But I was like, totally, I was done. I mentioned earlier, I was like, chefing and working in fine dining restaurants. And I had finally gotten out of that right before we moved to Atlanta, but I was working for Whole Foods as a butcher. So I was still kind of in the food scene, and I was working at this charcuterie, like specialty shop in Atlanta too. But I was done with it, man. I just like wanted to get out of the restaurant and food industry, like so bad. But I had like no real direction, no real prospects. I love Atlanta still. I think it's a great city, but there just wasn't anything for me there to keep me there. And like I said, I kind of just like missed the West a little bit. I missed the mountains, and I just needed to like reset, and that's what it was. And so I drove, and it was kind of a cathartic, experience coming back too. Like I bought myself a ticket to go see Farm Aid in Virginia one year. It was in 2016. It was like October. So I planned my whole like moving back to Colorado, in a moving van trip around, like popping up to Virginia to see this like epic Willie Nelson concert. And then I like drove west from there. Yeah. And I like stopped in Nashville for a night just to like see Nashville, and then, but then got back to Colorado and pretty much instantly, got a DUI, and which like totally fucked things up even more than they already kind of were. But it was good, man. Long story short, like, I quit drinking, and that was like almost 6 years ago. And, I've been way more productive as a fucking human. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, it's just, going back to what you were saying too about music and how we were both into like we were all really into hardcore, like really into that like kind of emo, screamo, hardcore music and of the early 2000s, man. And I like remember it fondly. And you and I have been to many shows together, and I've seen you play a lot of shows back in those days. And like, but for me, bluegrass and like folk music and stuff was always kind of in the background of that. Like the hardcore music was like the cool music and Sublime and like all that shit.
Yeah.
You know, that and like all the cool like Sage Francis and like Black Alicious and all those cool hip hop artists that we
It
like.
almost keeps you relevant.
Yeah, that was like
in the conversation.
Totally. That was like my friends and I's music, you know what I mean? And then but a little bit of my dad's side of the family, like my dad and my uncle, you know, are both musicians, and my uncle plays a lot of bluegrass, and so it was always in the background for me. And I started playing in bluegrass bands in high school. And you know, but I took 10 years off pretty much. I didn't play music for like 10 years, man. Like
Really?
at all. Like it just wasn't what I was doing. You know, I didn't have time for it. I couldn't be in a band because I worked on weekends and nights, you know, cooking.
Yeah.
So I was like, what's the point? Who even cares? Like, I just won't even play. So I just like didn't really play for like a decade. And that's why I really wanted to get back into it when I moved back too. So
Yeah. I was just curious, like, you know, I made that statement about being in Texas and hearing that kind of music. And so at that juncture, you know, in Texas, I was really, really depressed for some reason. It wasn't COVID, I was already depressed. I was running away from a huge failure that I had here with having to, you know, close down a company and, you know, file bankruptcy and had to lay off 27 guys. And so I was running as fast as I fucking could to get there. And the money I was making down there was really great. And it kind of masked it a little bit.
yeah,
but
it wasn't like a Band-Aid on it.
It wasn't enough to like get the depression out of the head, you know, and I will never forget this moment. And I think I talked to this a couple times, but there was somebody turned me on to Ashley McBride, and I was listening to, I forget what song it was. Either it was like driving and it was raining. It was horrible in Texas. And the song comes on and dude, I burst into fucking tears, dude. It just hit at such a visceral level. I pulled the work truck over and I just like sat there just like, what the fuck is wrong with me, dude? And the way that she sang that song, it was just different. I mean, yes, she's still very much a popular country artist,
Sure.
but she has that bluegrass element a little bit behind her. She's got that, you know, and I'm only naming like some of these higher artists because I don't know a lot of the, you know, a lot of the meat and potatoes of the actual industry that, you know,
Yeah,
but you
it's
know,
all
it was
good,
weird for me because it hit. And then my liking for that music changed almost overnight. It's all I started playing on guitar. It's all I wanted to learn. It's all I wanted to listen to. And so, but the reason I bring that up is because I feel like sometimes when you go through a change that's so drastic where you come back to something defeated and you have to kind of crawl out of that hole that you personally put yourself into, it's almost like you got to push all those shitty friends away. You also have to push the remembrance of that kind of style of music away, at least for me, because when I look at music, like I only listen to the old stuff that I love, and it takes me back to an instant moment. Like I'll never forget being at Warped Tour and watching Under Oath, and the freaking mosh pit dirt cloud is like towering above us, and like holding one of the Hoffman's younger brothers like up above because he had lost his shoes. I hear that song, and it's literally the title of the episode that Courtney and Tommy were on. That was the song playing. That's the moment that I remember. And so it's like, it's weird for me. Songs are great, music is great, but it's the moments that you remember out of those little nuances while listening to those songs.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was still so depressed. I had to kind of like I felt coming back to it months and months later, like, why am I only listening to this? Because I really love it. I still love it. But I felt like I had to push all those old memories away to almost escape further from and get further into my depression. And then that music, like, I remember it was so crazy. So when we first moved down there, Simone, I had to work. I was working a ton.
Yeah, just like only working. Yeah.
So Simone took the kids home for Christmas. The first Christmas was there. They were there Christmas morning to open presents. It was crazy. I was riding one of Jonah's like scooters in the house. I had the flu. I slipped off. I broke 3 of my toes. And it was like
Such
out
a
of
freak
nowhere, like
thing,
what is
man.
going on? But they were leaving. They were leaving at like 15 minutes after we opened Presents.
Oh my
And so they
God.
were gone for 2 weeks, and I was in this house alone. It was cold. I was
your
working,
toes
and I
hurt.
was sad as fuck. Right? And I started just playing this music. And
Yeah.
so a buddy of mine calls me. He's like, "What are you doing?" And he lived in Corpus Christi, but he was coming up to Green Hall.
No, it's
And
sick.
so I'm like, yeah, I'm at the house alone. He's like, no, come down to Green Hall, dude. I was like, well, who's playing? He's like, I got a ticket for you. Just come down. I know it's a guy you like. We've talked about it. I'm like, who the fuck's playing?
Sweet.
Right. And so it was an impromptu show, and I show up, and it's William Clark Green
Sick, dude.
and Flatland Calvary's
Yeah.
opening up for him. And I'm like, so like, I was in this misery state, and then I went and watched them play. They played their live album front to back because they just released it.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, dude, I love this music so much. It has so much more contextual depth than the stuff we listened to for years. And not saying that like tech guitar stuff and that is beautiful in its own right.
Yeah,
But
totally.
like the style of music that I love anymore, it has so much more dynamic range.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't make sense to the listener, like dynamic range is like top to bottom, right? Like you can hear something purposely crescendo and come back up into and out of it. It's almost like a waltz with the music, right? And
When we were
so
kids, it was just like as loud as fuck all the time.
compressed all up here, you know. But so my question to go back to it is like, you did have a past with the bluegrass element, but do you feel like you pushed yourself into it almost purposefully, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, again, you know, wanting to just actively play more was a big part of it. And I had zero aspirations to like do this for a living. Like when I got back and was like picking up the guitar again and the mandolin again and stuff and playing bass again, I just wanted to like have fun with music. But yeah, you know, I think what it was, you know, I think there's a similarity to kind of what you're saying too, because I don't really go back and listen to, you know, those bands that we used to listen to, like Circa and you know, Coheed and Cambria was always like one of my favorites, but very sparingly, because the same thing, it takes me back to when we were kids and stuff. And I feel like after all this, you know, transformative shit went down in my life, I kind of got into, I got really into old time music and like fiddle music, which has kind of got me into playing a lot of old time banjo and old time fiddle, as well as playing bass in the band. So I think that's totally like a parallel to kind of what you're saying, because it was all around that same time when like shit was just hitting the fan, and you know, and it kind of like took me in a different direction. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's any like actual, you know, like mental health stuff around it as far as any validity, but I've just noticed it with a couple of people, and you're actually the only person I've ever brought that up, being like, hey, that's kind of a similarity. You know, do you think it was maybe this or that? But for me, you know, the more I think about it, that was absolutely what it was. Like I had to escape that loss, and ultimately it made me a better version of who I am today. Like it made me a bit more, you know, understanding, kind of having a love for myself again, and not feeling so much of as if I was a failure.
yeah.
And so it's just interesting. I just wanted to ask you that because I kind of saw that through the story of, you know, this happened and we're coming back. But
Totally, man. Yeah, there was a lot going on for sure, you know. But yeah, the band in a lot of ways totally like, you know, put my entire life back on track, you know. And I'm super thankful for that.
that's amazing. So is it only you three, or is it only, okay, all right.
Yeah, we're a trio. The band started out in Durango in 2017, and it was Fred and some other people. It was originally a trio of Fred and two different dudes, and then Alyssa joined the band, and then I got swapped out to be the bass player. But we were a quartet for a little while, but we kind of consider the start of the band when we went down to a trio, which was like spring of 2018.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
Which is unusual for any kind of like, you know, bluegrassy band. We don't really lean that hard ourselves into like bluegrass or saying that we're bluegrass. We have a lot of bluegrass tendencies, I would say, but like, you know, the trio thing is unusual for like that kind of music, especially since we don't have a banjo player. So it's a unique thing. So we've always just tried to be our own band and write music specifically for the three of us, you know. Fred is our primary songwriter, and but I write and Alyssa writes too, and we all have songs on the new record. And so yeah, it's a different thing, but we love being a trio. It's like a it's a part of our identity as a band.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a part of our brand as a band. And we just on a personal level and on a musicianship level, it's just like super fun to be in a trio. And we just have like a really good chemistry, man. You know, it's something that we noticed early on. I think when the three of us started doing the trio thing is like, we were like, oh, this is like pretty cool. We can, you know, we're a nimble kind of unit and we all play really well together and always have. And I think we just have a lot of fun too, which is really important. Cause we're very like, you know, we're not a jamgrass band either. I wouldn't say that, but we do a lot of kind of freeform stuff in our set, especially at the live shows. We'll have, you know, we have pretty intricate arrangements as it is, but in live shows, there's always going to be some parts that are, you know, totally improvisational and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool. Yeah.
So I noticed a lot of your personal stuff, at least on your, I think it's Instagram, Facebook, Cody.
Yeah.
But you've been playing a bit more like violin. It's like, well, and I don't know if that's your personal channel. So it's like, I almost never see you play bass unless it's with Stillhouse Junkie.
Yeah,
So
totally.
like, I mean, where did that, was it just like you wanted to play the violin or just try it out? Or like,
That's what
got you?
it's kind of what I was saying earlier about like old time music, right? So old time music is this kind of subgenre of American folk music, but it's specifically kind of the American fiddle canon, you know what I mean? And we call it old time music. And it's kind of ironic and funny that it's called that, but that's what it's called. And it's really what it is fiddle tunes, man. And so, you know, the American fiddle tradition is just like our country, a melting pot of different cultures from all over the world. So the American old time fiddle canon is filled with tunes that were made up of a lot of Scandinavian and like British Isles and Irish and Scottish immigrants, but then also mashed up with the kind of like whitewashing of the banjo, which is a West African instrument. And so when the banjo and the fiddle kind of came together, primarily in the Southeast, that's kind of where this American fiddle tradition was born out of. So there are a lot of like cousin tunes, especially in like the trad Irish and Scottish traditions, that you can totally like pick out as being related and stuff, but it's its own thing.
Yeah.
And it kind of predates bluegrass music.
Yeah.
And, you know, Bill Monroe, who was kind of the father of bluegrass, you know, played a lot of those old tunes and based a lot of his original tunes around traditional tunes that he borrowed or stole. But, you know, that's what it's all about, right? That's the folk process in a lot of ways, you know. And so that's kind of what I've really been into lately in my own time apart from the band. Like that to me is like my casual hobby music, and the band and playing bass is my full-on career, my job. That's what I want to super excel at for sure. Yeah. But yeah, the fiddle stuff on Instagram, man, that's just like me playing old time tunes and just cool. Like digging it. And cause you know, too, like I'll throw up a bass video here and there or videos from the band and stuff on my, you know, personal Instagram. But, I mean, let's be real, man. Who wants to just watch like a bass player play bass lines? You know what I mean? Like, come on.
Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty cool. I know. I can't do it. And like, I mean, especially the stand up, like, let's just, go to, for the listeners. If you're not watching this, obviously Cody plays a stand up bass. Is it a fretless?
Oh yeah. I play I get to play like my dream instrument.
Play,
yeah.
Right?
It's
like super difficult.
Yeah. I play it at a vintage American bass. Actually, it was built in Chicago in 1955. It's a KM1. And so it's kind of like the bass that I always wanted. I get to have that now. And, but yeah, super fretless, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's why. So I, you know, just being the music nerd, like I see you play that. And I'm like, oh my, I know how difficult that is. Like, and I just watch it and you're kind of like, oh, that's awesome. You know?
The upright takes some physical like stuff that you have to like work on. It's not an instrument you can just pick up. It's like you can hurt yourself.
Dude, it's huge. Jonah was working with he was in Stillwater last season, but he was working with B. Frank.
Yeah,
And, you know,
like-
he was, like, and so they gave him the stand up bass, and he was like trying to do it, and it's like, you know, he's grown so much in that like year span. I think he's grown like 4 or 6 inches. But either way, like at first he's like, you know, trying to hold the stand up bass, and it's like, oh my god, you know, it's a massive instrument for a person to play.
Well, and I tour all over the like country with it, and have toured internationally with it too. You know, so it's totally like sometimes I am annoyed that I am the bass player because I'm basically carrying around like a vintage piece of furniture everywhere, you know, because that's the other thing is like, you know, when we're van touring, I have it in my gig bag. So it's like, it's a nice gig bag, but it's still a soft case, you know? So I'm always the one that's like, is my bass okay? You know, like everybody else gets to have like super nice hard cases and mine's like in a fucking padded sock.
Yeah.
But no, man, I mean, I love upright bass. It's a huge, like, I love acoustic music, like a lot. It's like a really important thing to me. And acoustic musicians, like just like electric musicians or any musician in a genre, like we have our nerdy things about our genre, and a lot of, especially bluegrassy acoustic musicians are really nerdy about their instruments and stuff and get really deep in that. And so that's always like a fun thing too, but I'm always worried about it is my point, and I have to, you know, lug it around. But yeah.
Do you, when you guys like tour, like let's say kind of, I don't know like what it would be called as far as like the genre of music in the area, but like in the kind of like the Virginias, like that area, like Kentucky, like do you notice a different style of your play versus like that, you know, cause, and I shouldn't say it's like so much different, but like you hear a lot of those, especially like the fiddle players and the banjo player, they have that like Kentucky twang.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, so do you notice like a huge difference like between your style of playing and like when you're playing physically in those areas? Or is it just kind of, it's all melded together just in that sort of genre you guys live in?
Yeah. You mean like, do we find ourselves kind of morphing to fit like the scene and where we're at, or what do you mean?
No,
exactly?
no. I just mean like, you know, like you,
Like, is that like, do we notice a difference in the scene there as opposed to like other places?
No, like, you know, if you play a G chord, a bar chord on a like an electric guitar, right? Like there's not a lot of difference. That band may sound different. The singer's going to sound different. The guitar player's going to play slightly different, but you would never know a guy that's from Virginia versus a guy in Texas. They're playing the same, but like, you know, I could just say like let's just say the fiddle player in the William Clark Green Band versus the fiddle player that plays behind Tyler Childers.
Sure. Which I know
They've
Jesse.
toured
Yeah.
alongside each other. They sound totally different. The way that they articulate the instrument.
Yeah. Yeah, totally, man. I mean, yeah, just like, I think, you know, any musician deep in any genre, when you get that down to detail, you could totally tell. And I can 100% tell. I mean, I can say that, you know, Jesse Ray in Tyler's band, he is, you know, those boys are fully Kentucky. You know what I mean? That band is like Eastern Kentucky, Lexington, baby. I mean, that part of the world is like a hugely important like music scene, and it's happening like right now, and it's really cool to get to go through there. But yeah, man, like Jesse plays a ton of old time music, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
And he plays a lot of bluegrass too, and he's also a teacher, I believe, at ETSU, Eastern Tennessee State, and they have a really great bluegrass and old time program. And I'm pretty sure that he's an instructor there. He actually played my fiddle for me before I ever got to play it. He knows the guy that built my fiddle. They're personal friends. But yeah, man, when it comes to acoustic music, and especially that kind of bluegrassy, punk bluegrass or folky stuff that's like based around like fiddle music in a way, like 100%, man, like we can, you know, decipher like, oh, that you know, that fiddle player was classically trained, or oh, that player sounds like they play a bunch of old time, or dang, they sound like
it's almost like geographical, right? I mean, that's like the Kentucky thing for sure. But like in this style of music is still so new to me. But that was one of the biggest things I picked out like right away. It was like, wow, this is totally like geographical. Like this person's from here, and a couple of the guys like in the Texas, like you could tell in a Texas band that, especially maybe. I couldn't pick it out so much with the fiddle because the fiddle just kind of, there's differences, but the way that like people would play banjo is like, this guy is not from Texas. Like,
no,
it was weird to me. It was like, because you don't hear that with electric instruments at all.
Oh man, dude, the Texas scene is like its own thing in so many different ways. And in the fiddly kind of world, like Texas fiddling is a pretty like full on style of American fiddling. And, you know, just the Texas swing vibe. It's very, very, very jazz heavy. It's super technical playing. It's a lot of like crazy double stops and really technical stuff. So yeah, the Texas style, anyone that comes from a Texas fiddling background is going to have like a different kind of sound than someone that is from Eastern Kentucky or, you know, North Carolina or something like that. That's played old time music. Super regional though, like you mentioned, especially the fiddle stuff, old time music. I typically like most of my repertoire is what's called round peak style, which is its own kind of like regional repertoire, but there's a really deep tradition in the Ozarks. There's a really great scene and always kind of has been up in northern like New York in like Ithaca. There's a super strong old time scene in the Northwest. There's pockets of it all over, and the repertoire is a little bit different. How you play tunes can be a little bit different. What tunes are known as can be different, and what parts can be different. So
It's wild.
it's a really
It's like
weird and
speaking a
crazy
different-
thing. And yeah, it's its own kind of language. It's like a secret language that if you're in the club, because that's the thing, man, is like, you know, the perfect example of this, and this is true of bluegrass too, you know, these kind of folk tradition music styles. You know, we were on tour in Europe. We were at a festival in Ireland for the whole weekend. So we got to just hang out in Westport, Ireland for like 4 days. And it's an urban festival. So they have a bunch of different pubs that open up, turn into venues. Then they had like some really big theater in the main part of town that they did like the big shows at. But we wandered into an old time session at one of the pubs, which is really interesting because everyone knows in Ireland it's like lots of music, lots of fiddle music, lots of folk music, but it's traditional Irish music that they're generally playing. So to go into an Irish pub and like hear like tunes that I knew, I was like, oh hell yeah, this is so cool. Like I can participate here, you know, because it was an old time jam, because the festival was an old time and bluegrass thing. So it attracted all these players from all over Europe and the UK and stuff. But yeah, man, it's totally like a secret kind of language thing, and it's true of bluegrass too. But then to juxtapose that, our band, like I said, like totally original music, and all of us have played a lot of bluegrass and a lot of old time now, so we get to pick with other musicians and stuff when we're on the road. But you know, our own stuff is like pretty different than any traditional, you know, stuff.
Yeah.
It has a lot of like ties and a lot of, you know, our foundation is there, but it's definitely different, you know.
Yeah.
But I think we sound like a Western band. If you were to look at the overall like kind of bluegrassy scene, bands like us, you know, from across the country, I think that we definitely sound. I don't think we fit the like Colorado jamgrass moniker exactly, but I do think we have kind of a Western vibe to our music.
Yeah, it's good, man.
Yeah.
I had listened to it in years past, and I was just to kind of get my brain into like, you know, what are we going to talk about? Just kind of, you know, perusing through, but it's good. It's very tasteful,
Thanks.
which is what I like. I mean, like I've never been. I'll be the first person to tell everybody. Like, I've never been a huge fan of bluegrass. It's just it's not my thing. But I don't feel like you guys are. I mean, maybe you do pull from that, like you know, from as far as, you know, the bass or the core, but. It's definitely very tasteful, and it's you can kind of like hang in with it for a while. I always felt like, for me, and like if any bluegrass people hear this, I'm so sorry, but like for me, bluegrass was like, it would just like continue, like, right? It's like, it's almost like a Grateful Dead song, where it just like goes and goes and goes and goes and goes, and I'm like, either you got to be on drugs to like listen to this or appreciate it, or it's like where's the starting, the stopping, where's the hook, where's the bridge, where's the chorus, like what are you doing to get me to believe your story, you know, like, and for me, a song always has to be a story, and that was my biggest bitch with, you know, every bit of music we ever wrote from my band until recent never had a story. Like we would always, it was like, you know, guitarists are fighting for guitarist parts, and like, I want to play here, I want to play here, and Corny's drumming as fast as he can. I'm trying to sing as many lyrics, and they don't fit because the song doesn't make fucking sense. You know, so it's like that was always a big deal with me with bluegrass, was just because I couldn't understand it. Not that it's bad, it's just it didn't make sense in my mind. So when I heard, you know, bands, you know, like Tyler's band or like some of that South Texas, it like has that like slight element only because the band are on the fiddle, right?
Yeah.
But they're telling stories with the songs. They're telling stories with the lyrics. And holy shit, the fucking hooks are like knockout. And it's like, oh, this is just beautiful. So I get a lot more of that storytelling vibe from your band than I do at least what I know of bluegrass.
Oh, totally. Well, a lot of that goes with being an original band. And the bluegrass world is interesting in that way because, you know, that you can be a band that does trad songs, like a trad catalog, and you can make a really great living
what
doing
is
that.
trad? I don't know.
Traditional blue, like so instead of like writing original music or whatever, you're curating your own set list with traditional songs from the bluegrass canon.
Got you.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Picking out tunes and songs from you know, past players that you like, or but it's an interesting mix in the bluegrass world of bands that do that, and then bands that do original music, and then bands that do both. So there's a lot of room, though. That's the beauty of it, right? Like, because we have been like totally welcomed into the bluegrass community. We won an award from the International Bluegrass Music Association a couple years ago, and they've been really good to us, and we love the bluegrass world, you know, because we're kind of from that world. But like, it is interesting, man. Like, there's a spot for people that are just ripping tunes that are just out there in the public domain, and that's dope, because what you get then is really what I would argue bluegrass is kind of about in a lot of ways is it is like totally like a tradition thing. You know, bluegrass is a fully American like musical style, hip hop and jazz and bluegrass. Like, those are super American. And it's cool. It's very original. So if you're kind of like into that traditional part of it and into, you know, keeping it going and in doing that, and it's like a pretty cool cause, you know, I would argue. But it's a very performative music too. You know, it's like there's a shit ton of improvising in bluegrass. It's jazz, but at like 120 BPM all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's dope. I mean, you know, Fred always says that like the dreadnought guitar player, the flat pick guitar player in a bluegrass band is like the Navy SEAL of guitar players, because you just are like, you know, just playing fucking eighth notes, dude. You're just living in eighth note land at 120 BPM, and you're fucking crushing it. You know what I mean? Like, and it's a language too. We talked about that a little bit, but it fully is, man. Like, bluegrass is so ripe for like the meme world that in a way, like, you know, we hear players like it's a language, like you're just pulling licks, man. That's so much of bluegrass is pulling out chunks of solos from people that you like that have come before you. So to someone that's like has that bluegrass vocabulary, watching someone play, it's kind of like they're playing like memes. You're like, oh, I know that lick, or like, oh, that's that big huge G run that like Del McCurry always, you know, Del McCurry's G run, like, you know, bump down, 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 you know, it's like, that's the shit right there. But you got to love that. And if you don't, man, you're going to super hate it.
I don't super hate it.
And a lot of people do, but it's okay.
I mean, I've been to some festivals and I've checked some stuff out, but it was never my thing. And hopefully nobody hates me for that.
But that's the thing. Well, that's the thing too, though, man. It's like such a wide, it's getting to be such like a cool time. It's a great time to be this kind of musician for us, because the scene is just really vibrant. It's growing in a lot of ways. There's some, you know, it's becoming more of an inclusive environment being a bluegrass and folk musician here. And it's just there's a lot of cool bands that we're, you know, getting to know and be friends with and get around the country with. And so it's a cool time to be doing it for sure.
I mean, it seems like it's, you know, granted, I wasn't living or breathing it, but like for me, I can see at least it coming, and hopefully this doesn't get like tarnished, like many things that do come into the forefront of like the public, right? But it's like with certain bands that have done really well with it, that do not change. They stick to that like style, and they just had some really kick-ass hits and continually put out great music. It's like, it's elevating that. And then everybody else that's in the scene is naturally coming up, right? Yeah. And there's I don't know this from firsthand, and hopefully maybe you can explain this, but like, I feel like at least with what you see, like on some of these like bands, like social media or like bands that they're touring with, it's like this, like, you know, a rising tide lifts all boats kind of vibe, right? So
Yeah.
it's like one band does good, and they may like share a fiddle player between like a couple of bands, and they like bring them on tour, and they like kind of do this like ebb and flow as they kind of rise each other up. They're gonna, and it's similar to that in the podcast world. It's like if you get this like clique of like a podcast community, like we're always trying to like help each other out. Like, what can I do to like promote you? And like we're kind of just jostling each other up as we go. And I don't know if that's a reality, but I do see that with at least some of the bands. Like, you know, you might have like 4 or 5 different artists that are sort of, you know, hey, this guy's touring this. Okay, we'll be the supporting act. And it's like, do this. Do you guys see that in real life?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think a lot of what I've learned about what the music industry is relationships, man. And, you know, there's pros and cons to that reality, but like I would say that, you know, we're very fortunate and we have a team of people that manage the band and that book for the band that I think have a pretty clear like understanding of like what it takes to be successful on the road and to not kill yourself while you're doing it. And so that's a huge, I mean, you nailed it like right on the head, man. Like that's a huge strategy point for our 2023 calendar is like big anchors. So, you know, that equates to like a festival play or a really great, you know, PAC Performing Arts Center where you're getting like a big chunk of money and there are going to be butts in the seats for sure. Or, you know, getting around with other bands that have, you know, as much of a draw as we do in the region, or really for us right now, we're trying to get on tours with bands that have more of a draw in the region. You know, we're happy to open for bands that we like that are bigger than us in different regions, and we're happy to reciprocate that. You know, there's a lot of that kind of trading going on behind the scenes, and in a lot of bands that people see that play together a lot, you know, typically are on the same recording label or might share a booking agent or might share a manager. So there's all these like, you know, behind the scenes relationships that are getting bands around the country. So yeah, we fully like see that. And we, you know, we have a list of bands that the three of us love that we want to like fucking hang out with, man, and like get around with. And like, you know, we're about to go out on the road in February for a handful of shows in California with a band called Head for the Hills that we've known for a few years. And we love those guys, and we're stoked to like get some real like FaceTime with them and actually like, you know, get out and hit the road with them. So it's cool. Yeah. And it's good for everybody. You're totally right. I mean, if you know, I think I've heard from some friends that are a little bit more in the rock world that they've noticed how like bluegrass is definitely very friendly. Mm-hmm. Like we all super love each other. And, you know, I and Fred and Alyssa have had the opportunity to meet a lot of our like legit heroes, man. Like, you know, we're playing festivals with bands that we've all been listening to since we were kids and like have been going to see at festivals and concerts. So it's been like fucking crazy, but yeah, that's all part of it is like getting to meet those folks and you get to be a part of this like national scene. And again, the bluegrass world is just like small and it's tight knit and everybody's like super down to be, you know, your friends. So it's cool. It's been great. You know, the guy that owns our record label, his name's Stephen Mogen, and you know, he owns the label, but also he's a touring, you know, guitar player. He plays in a band, Sam Bush, mandolin player from Newgrass Revival, and just, you know, Sam Bush is a very important American musician, period. Yeah. And so Stephen, our producer and label owner, is just in his band. So that's cool, and it's been really good to get to kind of know people through him too.
Sure.
So, so yeah, it's all about that.
What was Europe like, man? Had you been before, or was it?
Dude, I never had gone. I went to Mexico once, I think, when I was like 13. You know? And never been to Europe. I was super pumped, and it was, and I was super pumped on a personal level, and we were super pumped as a band. My partner Renee got to come with us, and she's also kind of our band photographer. She does like all of our kind of official band shoots and stuff. So she came in that respect, and just because we wanted her to. And yeah, dude, the shows were awesome. We played a festival in Westport, Ireland, like I mentioned, Westport Folk and Bluegrass Festival. And then we did like 10 days of van touring in the UK.
Oh, nice.
So it's just like us in a rental, just like fucking around doing what we do though. Like, and then we played a festival in the Netherlands. But it was like totally, I mean, it was life changing, man. Like 100% for me. You know, getting the whole thing like from go is nuts. Like, you know, international travel, as anyone knows, is like fucked up. It just is like, you're just awake for a long time. And we were awake for a long time and then had to like stay up to play a show that night. You know, I think we got to, after like however many flights and then we landed in Dublin, took a train all the way across to Westport, which is on the west coast of Ireland. It's like 4:35 in the afternoon, but we didn't play till like 10:30 that night. So we were just like hanging out, trying not to sleep so that we wouldn't like not wake up, you know? Yeah. But yeah, so from go, it was like full on in that regard with the travel and like having all of our instruments and our bags and shit. Like that was like kind of full on. But once we got to the van portion of it, like I remember when we loaded up the rental, like at the fucking Manchester airport or whatever, we all kind of like took a sigh of relief because we're like, okay, van. Yeah. We know van.
We know this.
We fucking super know van. Yeah. Like we can do this, you know? And we had way less shit than we normally do when we're touring over here. So we were like, hell yeah. So that was cool and a really dope way to see like a lot of England, you know? And we got to go on a day off. We took a train from Newcastle to Edinburgh. So we were in fucking Edinburgh for a day. And that was like, dude, mind blowing for me. Like that city is insane. And then we went to the Netherlands and played a festival in Rotterdam, which was also fucking crazy. Just like 2,000 Dutch people just like partying to bluegrass and got to meet a lot of cool Dutch musicians. We kind of reconnected with some bands that we had played with in Ireland like 2 weeks before that were on that festival too. Some American friends and some new European friends. So yeah, you know, it's crazy, man. And we're definitely planning on going back. There's some things that are in the works for next year, including a postponed Germany tour. Oh, we were supposed to kind of be in Germany until like a week ago. And because of the Ukrainian war and stuff, it just was like, it was all fucked up over there. So
yeah, let's get out of here.
Didn't pan out. But that's tentatively, you know, on the schedule for next winter.
Nice. So, what was the reception like? Because I've often heard that it's overwhelmingly positive. It's like there's the general population is so excited to have comedy and festivals and music, and they're just so receptive to it. It's like, you know, I mean, to a lot of times to be singing in a different language and like having memorized words of these songs. And so, I mean, did you guys get to experience, I mean, I know it was probably your first time over there. I don't know how much they were aware of your music, but what was that reception like?
Oh, great, man. Like people were pumped. You know, here and there people had like heard of us and stuff. We have some like DJs that we know. So people, you know, spin our stuff in Ireland and stuff from time to time. But the Irish are like, you know, music, especially folk music, is such a deep part of Irish culture that bluegrass is like so adjacent, you know, to it that, you know, the Irish are fucking down. They loved it. You know, they love bluegrass. They love old time. A lot of the musicians that were playing old time music in the pub, like when we got to play with them, a lot of them were Irish and from the UK. So it's cool. It's really like adjacent to their folk music. So it's an easy kind of transition. UK fans definitely also like we felt super welcomed, man. Like all of our shows were either sold out or very close to sell. And, you know, we were playing anywhere from, I think we played at a music store where I think there were like 30 people. And then we played, you know, some sit down listening rooms that were like 250 and 100 and 120 and kind of that range. And, but it was great, man. The English are definitely like more reserved than American audiences. But not in a bad way at all. They're very attentive. They're super polite and they're very fucking down, you know?
You mean they're more reserved, like they give room for the music to be played before like getting rowdy or
everyone's
something?
Like just listening. You know what I mean? Everyone's like really paying attention to your music and they're going to wait to clap till the end. And it's like, all cool.
Yeah. That's interesting.
You know, but it's both ways too, you know, playing some more of the rowdy stuff in Ireland. It was just like in a pub and it was fucking nuts, you know?
Yeah.
And then the Netherlands festival in Rotterdam Bluegrass Festival. It was like the 10th anniversary festival. So it's like right in the kind of the center of town and in this park. And yeah, it was super rad. 2 stages kind of on either end.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, I think there were like, 2,000 people there, 1,800, 2,000 people there, and just hanging out in the park. And it was dope, dude. The Dutch like to party, and it was super fun. And yeah. But you talked about like musicians singing and stuff in different languages. I mean, we met this band in Germany, or we weren't in Germany. They are German. They're from Munich. They're called Johnny and the Uahoos. And when they played in Ireland, it was the first time they had ever played as a band in an English-speaking country. So they play bluegrass. They play traditional bluegrass and sing in English. And they, up until that point, had only ever played in Germany. Oh, wow. So it was their first time playing to an English-speaking audience, and they were like super vibed out about it. And they were like all nervous, but they crushed it. They're like a sick band. Yeah. So it's really cool to see. And we the first show we played when we got there, the first night in Ireland was with a band from the Czech Republic. Same thing. Those dudes barely even spoke English. Like one of them had to like translate, but we would just pick a song and be like, "You guys know this one?" They'd be like, "Yeah," and then fucking banjo player would kick it, and we were like in it.
That's wild.
Yeah,
that's crazy. I don't know that you could do that with any other genre. I mean, yes, you could. I mean, there's like, obviously there's music theory, but
also you just have to you would have to find the exact right people to like know the same songs. I mean, that's a huge part of bluegrass, man. That's why it's such a tight knit community professionally, I think too, is because, a lot of our peers and a lot of our like heroes, man, in the scene are people that have been doing it since they were kids, fiddle players that have been doing contests since they were 8, that are now playing at the Grand Ole Opry and stuff. And people that have just been like fully immersed in bluegrass music their entire lives. And that's pretty crazy and pretty cool. But that being said, there's like room for everybody in it, so that's like, but that's the thing. It is about that. Like the jam scene is a huge part of a bluegrass festival, like a camping bluegrass festival. It's like the jam campground scene is almost more of what brings people to those than the lineup.
Sure.
In a lot of ways.
I mean, you're going for camping, you're going to have the time with, but the added feature, at least, the local ones, like any festival really, like if it's right, anything in Telluride, it's like, we're going to be in Telluride. We're hanging out. This is so awesome. And then, oh dude, here's the lineup. Are you fucking ready? Yeah. It's like, I don't know that we did go for BB King. Like, I think it was like it was his last show, obviously up there. Yep. That was cool. Just to be able to be like, all right, hey, we got to go to this, like just to see this. But I don't know that I've actually gone to watch a specific band. I'm always just like, dude, the lineup's gonna kill.
That's the thing. Any festival that happens in Town Park, you're totally right, man. I mean, the Bluegrass, Telluride Bluegrass, like Planet Bluegrass is the company that puts that on. And yeah, I mean, their festivals are all top tier. They do Rocky Grass and Lions and have a couple others in the state too. But yeah, I mean, that's like the pinnacle for sure. I mean, we've done the contest at Telluride Bluegrass twice and made the finals both times. So we've played on the main stage twice. Oh, nice. Yeah, but just like 3-song sets each time. So we're hoping to get back there as a paid band one time, like hired, like invited back. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's on our bucket list for sure, man. But dude, I mean, that's why I think that there's like, if I ever have like the money to do it and find a good team of people, I think it'd be really fun to make like a really high production value like documentary about the bluegrass festival scene, because it's such a funny and interesting subgenre of like America, man. That like, and there's these giant festivals that have been going on for 40 and 50 years. Like this year is like Telluride 50. Yeah. And there's some East Coast festivals that have been going on just as long, you know what I mean? We're playing a festival this summer called Merle Fest. It's been going on for like 36 years, I think. So it's funny and cool. And they all have their own little like flavor and their own little weird cultural things that like, oh, that festival is like the one with all the golf carts, and that one's like always hot as fuck. And that one, it like always rains, and like, you know what I mean? Yeah, for sure. And that one has that dude and that, you know what I mean? So it's cool. To get to experience that.
Telluride's different too, at least for me, because it was like, I remember the first 2 festivals I went to, so Bluegrass and then Blues and Bruce, and it was one of the 2, and like they were big, but it was like kind of a down year. It was a good lineup, it was still great, but they weren't as popular as they are now, because like if you're ever at Telluride, you're looking at the main stage. You've got massive amount of soccer fields, and there's a huge hill to it would be your left hand side, whatever directional cardinally speaking that is. But we used to just not buy tickets and just go sit up there, and you've got bird's eye view of main stage for free. The sound is quality. Now, dude, it's like people might as well be pulling their fifth wheels up on there because it's like standing room only on the hill, and I'm like, dude, that's got to be 10,000 people on the side of a hill just watching main stage. And then the grounds they're packed, it's wall to wall. So it's interesting. We were thought about going up this year. We had some stuff going on with just a conflict in schedule, but I do want to get the kids up there.
Well, you know what a great one is too, man, that like logistically is a little bit easier to handle is Pagosa.
Yeah, I've heard that one's awesome. I've never been.
Both the Pagosa festivals are great. Top tier, bands for sure. We're gonna be on the June festival this year.
Oh, cool. Nice.
So we're stoked about that. But yeah, that one is just has like a little bit more opportunity to camp, which I think is like a big thing. Obviously, Town Park in Telluride, it's got a small campground and it's just tough to like. It's a full on thing, Telluride Bluegrass, man.
You're up in the hills, dude. You're up in the national forest, basically tent or truck camping, and you're driving in. At least that's how.
Yeah, I mean that is kind of the best economical way to do it. Yeah. But it's challenging for that reason.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, dude. I mean, but it is one of the more beautiful places for a fucking bluegrass festival.
Dude, every time I'll never forget. There's that like photo. I think is it. Somebody's probably gonna shoot me on this podcast. I think it's a Fish record, but either way, they're like carrying the keyboard across.
Oh yeah,
the strip.
That is a Fish record. Yeah,
it's like 100%. 1975, and you look up and you just you seeing the pass coming down, and you're like, and you almost think it's like unrealistic until you're standing in that spot. You're like, holy shit, this is amazing.
Yeah,
like,
no,
wow.
Telluride is dope for sure, man.
It's a trip of a place, man.
Yeah,
for sure.
No,
if I could only ever afford it.
Yeah, no, dude, I know, man. It's wild. We play. We played there a handful of times. We play in Ridgeway a lot. We have like a great little fan base in Ridgeway. We love going there and playing at the Sherb. So yeah, man.
Ridgeway's cool, man. We, my brother and I were up there shortly before I left to go to Texas, and we got this job in off the beaten path. I can't say the name of the ranch, but anyways, a 50,000 square foot home. There's 4 stories.
Yeah. And
the lighting control system was going out at the time. And this buddy of mine got this contract with the job. He was also busy because he was doing Oprah's house in Telluride. And so he was like, I need you and your brother to come up here. And so we were thinking, like, okay, a couple of weeks or whatever. It ended up being 3 months. And so they let us camp on the ranch, which was amazing. This was like a 10,000 acre ranch.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just gorgeous. So we spent a lot of time in Ridgeway over 3 or 4 months. And really cool town. Dug it. Between there and Montrose and back to Telluride, we were considering, Simone and I were considering at that time moving to Ridgeway. And if we could have found a rental, we would probably be there. Yeah. Because I think it's kind of, for me, Ridgeway is a little bit of like what Durango used to be, like before it got overly populated. I mean, it doesn't quite have the same scene, but it's got a cool river vibe. It's
dude, yeah, totally, man.
It's really cool.
Yeah,
really
it's
gorgeous.
chill and small and really pretty, and it's Telluride's right there. And
close proximity if you got to go somewhere.
And you're right.
Yeah. Oh, dude, world class. So I never know.
Is dope
dude,
too,
on these shows, we'll be talking about such like personal stuff sometimes. And I'm like, if anybody hears this that doesn't live here, it's like, how do I even paint this picture?
I mean, that's the thing though, as the band has like progressed, man, I mean, our label is in Nashville and we work there often and it's, but we could live in Denver because it's easier to fucking fly. And, there are more convenient places for the three of us to live as touring musicians, but like we fully live where we do on purpose, what I mean? And I think that it's even like more real for us after the last year that we had. We were just so busy and so gone. Like I was gone for like 3 straight months before, we didn't come home. Yeah. And that was full on and really hard. And, but now that we're back, I mean, we are all really pumped that it's Durango, Yeah. So it's cool. Like we live here for a reason and it's dope and beautiful. And
there's definitely a huge thread there with a lot of people.
You make certain sacrifices living in a place like this, but it's all good. You know what I mean? And I'm fortunate because I get to travel a shitload, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
And I go to cool places and that's awesome. And so I get my city fix,
Yeah.
you know?
Get in there and get out, get home.
Yeah.
It's much more mellow, dude. I can't, like we try and usually do 2 or 3 trips. Like my son's way into soccer.
Yeah.
And so we're up in Denver at least 3 times a summer, typically, or a season. And like we finally found a spot that's not so bad. It's like right close to the stadium. It's a little more expensive, but it just kind of skirts everything. Mm-hmm. And like in my younger years, like Denver was cool. It was popping. It was hot. But like as a grown man with kids, I'm like, dude, I just have no desire. I could give 2.5 shits about Blake Street. I care less about, you know, there's some really great venues there and there's some cool spots, but it's like, it's just so stressful. Like that city for me is like, it always equates to stress. I'm like, how can I just go enjoy one thing? And so we finally, this last trip, we found a hotel that's right near the stadium. Don't go anywhere. And I'm like, this is it. This is what we're doing.
This is our hood. This is our neighborhood.
Yeah. And it's funny because like the hotel's like in the middle of like essentially what like a 3 Springs subdivision sort of looks like. It's all these little like townhomes / you know, whatever.
Totally.
You know, so it was perfect for us. But the 2 prior to that, man, it was just stressful. One time we were like, let's stay right downtown. The kids will love it. And it was like Bum Central.
Yeah.
And it was like, dude, I just and you know, I mean, we are not going to get into that whole like problem on this show for sure. But it was like to explain that to a 10 and a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
They're like, what is going on? Like, well, that gentleman is pooping on the sidewalk. Dude. And so it's just one of those things. It's like, as long as I can keep them with blinders on for a little bit longer so they just could be a child and be like, I enjoyed my trip. I didn't have to watch this lady, you know, crazy with a, you know, bottle of McCormick's out there screaming at,
hey man.
You know?
Yeah.
So
dude, I fully get that for sure. And you know, like any city has its like weirdness and coolness. And like, you know, that's the thing too. It's all even cities that we never thought we would like jive with, you know.
Yeah.
We've found really cool people and really cool things about them. But yeah, man, I mean, ultimately the Front Range is just kind of a crazy thing, you know. For folks that don't live in Colorado, it's just like it's a bustling city. People that live there like do a lot of stuff outside, but it's also just a busy city, and so there's a shit ton of traffic. But you know, it's like it's dope. There are worse places to be, that's for sure. You know what I mean? Like,
dude, if I could find, I think the one spot I would definitely buy a house. I don't know if I would live there permanently, but if I could find a place, it would be Green, like in Braunfels. I mean, you know it.
Central Texas, baby. Yeah.
Dude, that little town is one of the coolest places I've ever been to in my life. I mean, Green Hall obviously is a staple for that little place, but it's just, it's cool. Like we did Christmas when we were down there, and like the whole entire town is decorated. And it's not a town, so it's like it's part of New Braunfels, Texas. It's literally over the bridge. It's the same zip code. It's the same. It is Green, but it is New Braunfels, Texas.
Yeah.
But it's like a larger subdivision essentially.
It's just another random thing for those Texans to be like really pumped about.
Yeah, no, we're putting our flag here. This is Green,
son. We live in Green.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, nah, dude. I mean, well, hey, man. Like, I did almost 10 years in Texas, and like Central Texas, specifically Austin. You know, and yeah, it's dope. It's beautiful, and there are all those little cool towns all around. And Texas's culture is unlike anywhere else, you know, in the country. It's fully its own thing, and with music and food and the drinking culture, and like it's a cool place. Yeah.
Would you guys do a circuit in Texas? Is that your scene?
You know, it's funny, man. Like Texas is pretty much the only place we really haven't hit like hard. We've been through a couple times, but it's been a while. And at this point, we're gonna have to go in with some other band, I think. Like, you know what I mean? It's just going to be tough. It's a tough market. Like, I don't think we would try to be like grinding Texas out. You know, we're probably going to stick to the I-35 corridor.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's funny because there's like, you know, those guys down there, it's, you know, they're all from wherever, freaking Louisville or Austin or, you know, some other small podunk town. But dude, they are diehard Texas musicians. And like some of these folks, like, they know, like, it's like a plethora in their catalog of like, and you look at like, who is this? And you listen like really good. And you look at where they're touring, it's only in Texas. They tour year round in Texas.
And do well.
Yes.
Yeah.
They'll drive 30 minutes from, you know, Kyle, Texas to Austin
To
and play another
Austin,
night,
dude,
or San
seriously.
Marcos.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like, you drove 45 miles and played 3 shows. Like what?
And they were both sold out.
Oh
Or they
my
were all
God.
sold out. No,
Yeah.
straight up. I mean, that's the thing. It's crazy. Like, I think, a bucket list item it would be for us to play Kerrville folk, that's a way that we would love to get into Texas. Obviously, if we could, finagle some kind of not super shitty South by Southwest situation. But, in the bluegrass folk world, it's, from what I understand, it's kind of up in the air as to whether or not it's worth it for kind of some bands like us to be there for South by, because Austin has a dope like indie rock scene and like metal scene and stuff, but there are like totally some folkies there too and some bluegrassers, but yeah, dude, I mean, I would love to get more into Texas, and we will. Yeah, we totally will. I mean,
what's that really cool club in San Marcos? It's I mean, there's a bunch, but there's one that's like literally the outside of the building is tin. It's just like corrugated tin metal. God, I can't think of it right now.
I know. I wish I knew. I have to admit, I very rarely left Travis County.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
It's all good.
Like towards the end of my time in Austin, I hardly ever crossed over I-35. I was just like hanging out on the east side the whole time.
Just doing your thing. It's all good.
Yeah.
So, man, what's, I mean, obviously you guys got this tour coming up here in a couple weeks or in February, going to California, possibilities of going back to Europe. But what can you let us know, like, what the big thing is? Like, what's the push for this year? I mean, we talked about digital music and trying to figure out how the hell to break into that market a little bit better. But I mean, you guys got anything that you're like, you're excited to talk about?
Dude, we have a lot of cool stuff that's in the works. We have already announced some pretty sweet festivals for next year. As I mentioned, Pagosa, Folk and Bluegrass in June is a great festival to have on our list for next year. We announced Merlefest, and we announced Blue Ox, which is up in Wisconsin. And then there was another one, Romp Festival, in Owensboro, Kentucky.
Okay.
So we've got them kind of spread out, in some different regions. But yeah, I mean, the cool thing is, man, is it's still early in the 23 season. You know what I mean? Like a lot of festival booking won't really wrap up. Some of the last minute, strings will be tied in early spring after the turn of the year. This is kind of the doldrummy part of the holidays where people in the music industry take luxurious time, off. They're making sure no one's really working for like most of December. But no, man, it's great. Like there's going to be some cool stuff. Strategically, I would say, we're trying to just pull as many festivals as we can. I think that's like a big thing for a lot of different reasons for a band like us. But, for us to have a year of getting a handful of higher profile festivals, even if we're at the very bottom of the lineup, we're stoked for that. And that will only like help next year kind of pop even more, we hope, and maybe, creep up on the billing a little. But,
are you guys still touring this album? Or are you working on new music? Or
well, in January, which is only a couple weeks from now, we're going to be up near Colorado Springs at Greenbox Arts for like a full month, living up there, doing an artist retreat that we were able to get through them. And so we'll be working a lot on the new record. I think we're slated for another release in 2024.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Yeah. So we'll tour this all next year, and yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, but we're stoked. And yes, like I said, I mean, we'll be getting around the country, at least a couple times and hitting as many regions as we can and revisiting spots we've been. But yeah, lots of good stuff coming up this year. And you can find all that at stillhousejunkies.com and on social media and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Cody, man, thank you so much for coming on, dude. I appreciate you.
Oh yeah, man.
It's amazing. Like this podcast is so selfish for me because it's like, I am talking to people and hopefully somebody hears this that doesn't know you and they can kind of sprawl through the internet and find out.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like, I would say 9 out of 10 guests are personal friends that I haven't talked to in sometimes a decade. And it's such a joy to like, be like, what are you doing? Where you been? And it's a crash course, right? I mean, it's like, we don't have enough time to see what life has really been, but it's just totally, such a joy for me to just catch up with people. And, for you to agree to come on, it was like, this is going to be a calm, relaxing conversation, you know, like I don't have to get amped about it. I don't have to be hype. It's just,
Hey, man.
we're just going to talk shit and just have a great time.
Oh yeah,
And so-
dude. And like I said, I was like super honored that you asked me to be on, and this for the viewers out there, this is the new space too, and it's fucking beautiful, my friend.
We are trying, man. We're trying to, you know, I said it a couple of weeks ago, I think on another show, but it's like I started this thing in a garage. You know, it's just like because I just have this like desire to do it, and a buddy of mine, Eric Nelson, he kind of pushed me towards it, and I'm very thankful and grateful. And so I just jumped into it without really any gear, and was just like, how can I do this to the best of the ability? Had a couple shows that sort of. I felt like my performance wasn't that great. The guests were nervous, and it was just this weird deal. And it was like something just switched. It was like, okay, I got to do something better so that way that if I have the ability to get a guest in here in person, like how can I get the best quality, both video and audio, but also how can I get them to calm down as fast as possible? And it was like, I just felt like I have to do that almost in honor of the guest. It's like you're taking your time out of your day. You know, it's a couple of hours wherever you're driving from.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like, I just want to make sure I'm doing it right. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I
dude.
really
Well,
do. And it's like, I'm such a tech nerd where it's like, is this right? You know, and
Super comfy in here.
yeah,
So don't worry about that.
I just want to make sure that I'm giving back to the guests because, you know, in all honesty, like for me, I probably get more out of talking to the people as like almost like a little bit of, in a therapeutic manner.
Yeah,
'Cause
dude.
I just like to, you know, converse with people and hear their stories and talk, and just the tonality of people's voices, kind of just this like Croning effect where it does calm me down. But if I can, you know, most of the people I have on here are probably more successful, if not all of them, than I am. So it's like, I don't plan to get anything
What does
from
that
that.
even
But it's
mean?
like, if I can put up a platform that's like, does give a little bit of long-term context to somebody to gain a better understanding of a person or what they're doing or what they're about. It's like, for me, that's like, okay, if I can put that out in the world, somebody may hear it, nobody may hear it. We'll see what happens with it. But yeah, I want to, if I'm going to do it, I got to do it to the best of my abilities at that time.
Oh, dude. Yeah. Hell yeah.
If
man.
this thing grows, sweet, man, we can probably have an awesome couch loungy, you know.
Just knock a wall out, take over the fucking unit next door.
Yeah. Sorry, dude. You're done.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, I mean, hopefully it conveys well to people. And yeah, man, I'm excited. This was the last week. We had 2 guests scheduled, and I was in here painting and trying to get this thing done, and I never would have gotten it done. And thankfully, as much as I hate to say this, thankfully they both had to cancel.
Yeah.
And it was like, whoosh. And then I'm like looking at the calendar. I'm like, oh, dude, Cody's next. This is so perfect. First episode.
Hell yeah.
New show. Like
Yeah,
calm
dude.
environment.
It doesn't
So-
even smell like paint in here either. So
It did yesterday. I
There
ran
you
that
go.
fan all night.
I mean,
so-
dude, it smells like fresh and clean.
Yeah,
No, it
so-
looks great for real, man. I'm fucking super stoked for you, man.
Thank you, brother. I
yeah.
appreciate you, dude.
Yeah, dude. Let's continue this catch up on a front porch or something soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, right on, brother.
Cheers, man.
Have you ever felt
Are you listening? Damn.